What advice would you give to people who have a dream of opening their own gym?
Yeah, I mean, I understand this is a massive thing now. People wanting to do it, and it's very capital intensive. My advice would be think about what's going to make your gym different to something else, because there's a lot of competition. The commercial gyms have got hugely deep pockets, and they'll run at a loss to run you out of business as well. So it's thinking about what can you do, what niche can you have, that then actually makes you separate. So with anything you need a USP, and then also thinking about actually the temptation for people can be, put everything up as cheap as possible, just get it up and think about profit. And there was a real blessing that the first gym wasn't designed as a business in itself. It was designed just to be an amazing place to train. So we didn't scrimp on the equipment. We just saw what's the best stuff we can buy from across the world, get all the, the premium makes, Atlantis, the primes, and so on.
Where was the first one?
In West Leeds, in Farsley. And that meant that people actually appreciated it, because it wasn't just, I just bought some cheap stuff from down the road, or I refurbed some. And we had some older stuff that was already in the gym that still worked fine, but we just also, went to town on the new stuff as well.
And how did you go about launching it? Like, was it a successful launch? Did you have like all the people sign up that you wanted to get signed up?
Yeah, the first one was a slower one, because at that time this was a new business to me, and also we had some existing members who'd be really patient with us through the kind of whole thing. But at that time, no one knew what an Ultraflex was. So the gym was previously called Flex, and we just changed it to Ultraflex. But nobody knew what that meant, and just assumed it was just the old gym but with a new paint job. And it took a while actually for people to start coming in and seeing the product. But we did a lot of marketing through social media. Before I had the gym, I didn't have a social media account. I didn't have a Facebook. I didn't have Instagram. So that was a whole new learning process of figuring out how that whole thing worked. And using that where people would come in, they would take pictures, video and stuff. And then that really helped boost the knowledge about the gym.
Yeah. And then how shortly after that did you open up a second one?
I think it was probably about 18 months or 2 years, something like that. So, dealing with the commercial landlords, it takes a long time to negotiate the lease. Often you have to get planning permission. Then you have to bring in contractors to fit out the gym. The lead time on some of the equipment now, particularly post-pandemic, is 10 to 12 months in the most extreme cases. So even if you've got a deal done, often it's 6 or 12 months before you can actually get something open as well. And then you've got to find a decent
unit. You might
even
have already agreed to be renting that place, and you're just paying the rent, and it's just not making any money.
Yeah. And you can negotiate with the commercial landlords, a rent-free period, a half rent period, and so on and so forth, which certainly helps. But even then, you need to get it open really as quick as possible so you don't have the cash drain.
You find that most businesses tend to just rent from the landlord.
Yeah, even the big players tend to rent, and the reason you would think, why not buy your own premises? And there's a couple of the gyms that I'll buy the buildings for, but for personal sort of reasons. But it's leaner. If you think if a gym costs, depending on how you fit it out, $500,000 to $2 million to set up, if you then go and buy the building, that might cost you the same again. Whereas actually you can lease another building and get a second gym open, and you'll make more on the gym if you do it right compared to actually the real estate investment.
Yeah.
But some of the joys are also dealing with the landlords, where they can be quite negative about gyms. They don't always have the best view of gyms.
Yeah, because they think it attracts like the wrong crowd of people.
Partly that, or they're just thinking they can quickly rent it out to someone who just stores boxes. So why wait for you to get your planning permission? And then what happens if you default? I think their image sometimes is a stereotypical one of, it's probably just a bunch of meatheads who want to have a gym and they've got no idea about business. So it's taking the landlord through that process and trying to get them comfortable as well. I think it's crazy, because as a landlord myself, where you've got someone who spent a lot of money on the fit out, they're not going to walk away easily from that. It's not like someone who's storing boxes who can go bust tomorrow. And also, they've built a business that's going to produce a recurring income. So you've got a tenant who's not trying to sell a new product every month.
That's a guaranteed tenant for a long time. You're not just going to pick up all your equipment and be like, oh, let's go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's right. It's the cost of a fit out is really prohibitive. So that's so key to get a good spot in the first place, but also why you wouldn't move unless you really have to.
I had the same problem with landlords with the facility which I opened up. It's on Scotswood Road, just off Scotswood Road in Newcastle. Yeah. And the same thing, the landlords, we found the ideal place, but it wasn't the right use. So we tried to apply for a change of use, turn it into like whatever it is that was going to permit a gym to be there. And it was such a headache, the whole process. We got a no from them, then we appealed, and then we appealed again. And the whole thing was lasted for like, it was like 6 months where we were ready to go. And like the suppliers of like the mats and the mirrors and the machinery were like, you know, what are you guys doing? Like, do you want this or not? So it was like, I remember that being a really stressful period.
Yeah. It's frustrating. And also, once you've got a deal done with the landlord, you kind of think, we're there. And, you know, the planning can be difficult. And also the planners are not people who are really pleased to have your facility in the area, just another job on their desk, and they may have a different view. And it can be frustrating also when you've seen a unit's been vacant for 2 years and they still don't want to give you the planning, and then it sits vacant for another year or something as well.
I don't know what goes through the head or what they're thinking. Yeah. Everything's just really slow.
Yeah, and it's very different from area to area as well. So one area will want this. You know, in York, we had to put in bike racks and electric car charging and other stuff like this. In other areas, it's not a requirement. So it's completely down to local council, and that's the joys of the UK. It's a fragmented system.
You got any tips for fast tracking the process? Like, is there even a way?
I mean, getting an experienced planning consultant really helps. And then, I mean, look, part of going back to your earlier question is, you know, if you're going to try and do a gym, you know, one of the things can be to collaborate with someone who's already got a gym. So, you know, there's myself or other people in the UK who are looking to expand, you know, find someone who already knows how to do it, because you can speed up the process and piggyback on the experience that they have. So we've got some great planning consultants, really good real estate lawyers as well. And they help speed up the process a lot. And also try and cover all the negotiating points initially as well, so that you're not having to go back and forth or, you know, you're on a deal.
I guess it's tricky because if someone like you've got the funds to do it, then like it's fine. You can speed up the process and it's not going to, you know, hurt your pockets too much. But other people who are starting out and maybe it's their first gym, you don't really have a huge amount to spend, and you can't like fast track the process. You got to be wait and be patient. Yeah,
and the frustrating thing is the pre-planning process can take as long as the actual full planning process. So the whole idea of pre-planning is it kind of gives you an idea whether you're going to have a chance or not, and it's supposed to run 2 to 4 weeks. But often that takes 10 weeks, and you can get a full planning application done in 12, let's say. So you think, well, why would I do the pre-planning? Because if I get that, then I have to go back through the full planning process and spend another 3 months waiting. So, you know, it can be a painful sort of process as well. But it's just that's the rules. Now they've changed it to something called Class E. I'm trying to not get too much into technical aspects, but you know, there's certain buildings that just will automatically qualify for planning without you having to apply for change of use as well. So that's really helpful for leisure.
Yeah.